Hey, welcome to the channel. Let's explore what the book has to offer. Oh, and keep an eye out for small notes that will pop up on your screen at regular intervals, perfect for quick takeaways and jotting down some life-changing insights. So, let's jump right in and see what this book can teach us.
All right, ready to dive into some urban legends. We're talking about those stories, the ones that make you want to just lean in a little closer and listen.
Those whispers of strange happenings and cautionary tales, right?
Exactly, those ones. Have you ever heard of one about a solid cement Cadillac?
Or how about the poisoned pussycat at a party? Classic.
Those are the ones. To help us unpack all of this, we're using Jan Harold Brunvan's book, Too Good to Be True, The Colossal Book of Urban Legends.
It's an amazing collection, really. Hundreds of these tales.
All categorized by theme, too.
And what I find really fascinating is how he actually analyzes them, dissects them.
He doesn't just retell them.
No. He's looking for patterns, the psychology behind them, why they resonate so much and continue to spread.
It's not just about the spooky or the funny then, but what they reveal about us as people.
Exactly. One of the first things he talks about is how they evolve, like a big game of telephone.
I see, so kind of how rumors spread and change over time.
Yeah, exactly. He even compares different versions of a story called The Witty Astronaut, and it's wild how the core narrative stays the same, but the smaller details shift.
So it's like the main point, that core, is what hooks us, and then as we retell it, we add our own spin on it.
Yeah, our own little embellishments. Unconsciously, even?
Interesting. So it's like this cultural DNA that replicates as it's shared.
And one of the themes he uncovers is this idea of jumping to conclusions. And that's where things can get pretty funny or even a little cringy.
Oh, I can imagine. Do you have any good examples of this, jumping to conclusions?
Oh, I do. He talks about the solid cement Cadillac.
Okay, let's hear it.
So this woman gets into a fender bender, nothing major, but she sees biscuit dough expanding in her car and thinks, get this, it's her brains oozing out. Right. And then a helpful bystander, thinking they're doing the right thing, ends up filling her brand new Cadillac with concrete.
No way. A well-intentioned disaster, for sure. What makes us jump to conclusions like that, though? Is it fear?
Maybe. Or a lack of information, or just overthinking things.
Probably all of that, mixed together.
Yeah, our brains are wired to find patterns to make sense of the world, but sometimes that leads us down the wrong path.
For sure. Okay, what other jumping to conclusions stories did you find?
Well, there's Why I Fired My Secretary, which is all about a surprise party gone wrong.
Oh, boy.
You can imagine a couple is caught in a compromising position all because of miscommunication and assumptions.
Oh, that's rough. That's definitely a story that would make its way around the office gossip.
It's a reminder that sometimes those assumptions can be so awkward.
Speaking of awkward, what about that poisoned pussycat?
Ah, yes, the poisoned pussycat at the party. A cat is mistaken for having eaten a poisoned pie and ends up thrown into a river.
Oh, the poor cat. So many of these stories hinge on that quick decision, that moment of reaction without thinking.
And it's interesting because, sure, they're funny, but these jumping to conclusion stories often tap into those deeper anxieties, like social faux pas or misinterpreting situations.
Yeah, or even just, our instinct to avoid danger.
Right. Our brains are constantly scanning for threats, even if it ends up just being expanding dough.
So we've got these snap judgments, but I'm sure there are other common themes in these urban legends, right?
Of course. One of the most common is the theme of accidental deaths and injuries. They play on our fears of the unexpected, those moments where something tragic just happens.
It's funny how, even though they're just stories, they still make you feel uneasy.
It's true. They tap into those primal fears, anxieties about vulnerability and loss. It's all part of being human.
So what are some of these accidental death stories from Brunvan's book?
There's one called The Death of Little Mikey. It's about two kids playing hide and seek.
Okay.
And when the lights come on, there's been a horrible accident. It's a really common story told in many different ways, but often it's like a cautionary tale about the dangers that hide in plain sight.
It's kind of heartbreaking. Makes you wonder if there's any truth hidden in those stories.
That's the thing. You never know where reality ends and the storytelling begins. Another one is the ski accident where someone falls from a ski lift and lands on a tree.
Oh, that's scary.
And then, of course, we have to mention The Barrel of Bricks, all about the dangers of construction work. Accidents can happen anywhere, at any time.
It's like each story is a warning passed down to the next generation.
A way of acknowledging the potential dangers and maybe even preparing ourselves for them.
But it's not all doom and gloom, right? What about animal mishaps?
Oh, yeah, those are a bit more lighthearted. Truman Capote, the writer.
I know him.
Well, he told a story about the dog in the high-rise, where a Great Dane swallows a guest's toupee and almost chokes to death.
Oh my gosh. Animal stories are always so unpredictable.
They make you think, we might think we have our pets figured out, but they can always surprise us.
For sure. Sometimes those surprises aren't so pleasant, though.
Like in The Dead Cat in the Package. This woman finds a mangled cat in her car engine. It's a reminder that nature can be brutal.
Yikes. I'll think about that next time I start my car.
And then there's the pet eagle. An eagle snatches someone's pet chihuahua. Tragic, yes, but it also shows that predator-prey dynamic, nature's raw power.
It's like we project our own anxieties about the unexpected onto these animal stories.
You got it. Okay, so we've got jumping to conclusions, accidents, animal mishaps. It seems like these all revolve around things going wrong.
Where the ordinary just becomes strange and unexpected, yeah.
It's what makes them so compelling. They reflect how we want to understand the world, how we try to find meaning in the things that don't make sense.
Trying to make sense of the universe one urban legend at a time.
Exactly. And I think there's another big one, the theme of revenge and scams. Those stories where human nature really shines through.
Oh, I love those.
Yeah.
It's all about that desire for justice, seeing those who do wrong get punished.
Brunvan has some good ones. He talks about Dial Revenge, where this wife gets back at her cheating husband.
Ooh, how'd she do it?
She leaves a phone line open to a Hong Kong time and weather recording.
So clever. And petty.
The perfect combination.
All right, what other revenge stories did he include?
Well, there's the stolen specimen, which is kind of a bizarre one. This pregnant woman's urine sample is stolen from her car.
Who would steal that?
It's a strange twist, right?
And then there's the pregnant shoplifter, a story about someone pretending to be pregnant just to steal from a store.
It reminds you that people aren't always who they seem.
It's a good reminder to be careful who you trust.
But it also shows that we as humans are naturally inclined to trust others, and sometimes that makes us vulnerable.
Good point. So we've covered stories about jumping to conclusions, accidental mishaps, animal antics, and revenge.
But remember, the book is called Too Good to Be True. So now we have to talk about those true urban legends, the ones that make you wonder, could this actually be real?
This is my favorite part. Those stories that just make you question everything.
One that comes up a lot is the unsolvable math problem. It's about this student who solves a problem that no one else could figure out.
I've heard that one. But the reality is probably a lot more complicated.
Right. It appeals to our desire to see that kind of intellectual victory. Like even the hardest problems can be solved.
What other ones did he include?
There's Craig's world record collection. It's about someone who claims to have this world record collection of something totally ordinary.
But it turns out it's not true.
Nope.
It's a reminder to be careful about what you believe, especially online.
And finally, we have the bullet baby. This is a wild one. A Civil War soldier is shot in the testicle, and years later, a bullet is found in his son's head.
That's impossible, right?
It really pushes the boundaries of believability. But it's so memorable, and people keep sharing it.
I guess it speaks to our fascination with the impossible, those weird twists that life throws at us.
And also our need to connect the dots, to find narratives that link things together, even if they're not true.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here in part one of our deep dive into urban legends.
Yeah.
From the funny to the tragic, the believable to the totally absurd.
And we've started to see how they tap into our fears, anxieties, hopes, and even our sense of humor.
But I want to leave our listener with something to think about. As you hear about these stories, what patterns do you notice? What themes stand out?
And even more importantly, what do they reveal about us as humans? Our need to believe, our capacity for good and bad, our fascination with the unknown.
We'll be back with more in our next installment, so stay tuned.
See you then.
Back again for more urban legends.
Last time we ended with a pretty big question, remember? What do these stories say about us? About human nature?
It's been on my mind for sure. I mean, we've laughed, we've cringed, even gotten a little spooked. But what's the takeaway?
It's interesting to me how often they're about the unexpected. When things suddenly get weird or scary.
Yeah, like the killer in the back seat.
Yeah.
That fear of being vulnerable, especially at night, out alone.
Exactly. And it's not always about physical safety either.
Right.
It can be social anxieties too, like why I fired my secretary, miscommunications, assumptions, those awkward moments.
Oh, totally. And I think those social anxieties are even worse these days.
Pat?
With social media, we're always bombarded with info, expected to know how to act.
So these stories about awkward encounters really hit home.
They do. It makes me wonder if maybe they're kind of a coping mechanism.
What do you mean?
We laugh at the absurdity, but maybe it's a way to deal with our own social anxieties and fears.
That's a good point. Like, we're putting those anxieties onto the story, the characters.
And that helps us feel more in control of them.
Interesting. So we've got the unexpected, the social anxieties, but then there's that theme of justice, too, wanting to see people get what they deserve.
The revenge stories.
Right, like Dial, Revenge, that cheating husband with a huge phone bill. It's that fantasy of a just world.
It's not just punishment, though. It's about being clever.
Yeah, finding those creative ways to right a wrong, even if it bends the rules a little.
We get to experience that triumph without actually going through it.
Exactly. And even when the revenge seems a little over the top, it's often funny, too.
Like a wink to the audience, saying don't take it too seriously.
Right, we're all in on the joke. But at the same time, I think it shows that we really crave fairness.
Makes sense. We want a sense of balance, especially when the world feels so chaotic.
Now, what about those stories that blur the lines between truth and lies?
Ah, yes. The unsolvable math problem. Craig's world record collection. They sound so real.
But often, they're just embellished or totally made up.
It's because we want to believe in something extraordinary, right?
Yeah.
Even when it's probably not true.
That's right. We love mystery, things that can't be explained, and the internet makes it so much easier for these stories to spread.
It's like the more people share it, the more real it seems.
That's the power of storytelling. It's how we connect, how we pass down our beliefs.
Even the fake ones reflect something about what we value.
Like the pregnant shoplifter. It's about betrayal, breaking social norms.
Makes us think about honesty and taking advantage of others.
These stories are like modern fables, teaching us lessons without preaching.
Like that, a hidden moral code in these urban legends. And it's not just about social stuff, it's about technology too.
Oh, absolutely. As technology changes, so do the stories. Exploding toilets, phantom phone calls, computer viruses taking over your life.
Each new technology brings new anxieties.
Those anxieties then turn into stories. A broken ATM, that embarrassing social media post from years ago.
It reflects how uncomfortable we are with how fast technology changes.
And our love-hate relationship with all our devices.
But it's interesting how these stories can make us feel connected and isolated at the same time.
What do you mean?
Connected because we see those shared anxieties, like when technology goes wrong. But also isolated because it's often about someone alone dealing with the consequences.
That's true. A broken down car in the middle of nowhere or a computer wiping out your whole life.
It's like those stories are about the need to be both together and independent.
That duality of human experience. We want community, but we also want to do things our own way.
And sometimes those two things clash. That's what makes those stories so interesting.
It's when we see those vulnerabilities, those limitations, that they grab our attention.
You know, it's weird, but even though these stories are about negative things, they can be comforting too.
Comforting, really?
Yeah, because it shows we're not alone in our anxieties. We all have awkward moments, bad luck.
So it's like they're saying, it's okay to mess up. We're all human.
Exactly. And that makes you feel less alone, like we're all in this together.
Sharing that absurdity of life without being too serious about it.
So maybe that's what these urban legends are all about, embracing the unexpected, finding humor in the chaos.
And connecting with others through those shared human experiences.
It's like celebrating our imperfections, finding the beauty even when things go wrong.
As we go deeper into this, it's amazing how these simple stories say so much about who they are.
They show us our fears, our hopes, our need to understand the things we can't explain.
Keep that in mind as we move to our final part.
We're going to see how these stories have changed in the digital age.
How technology has changed the way we tell and experience them.
It's about to get really interesting. We're back for the final part of our urban legend deep dive.
We've talked about mishaps, mischief, those too good to be true stories.
Even had a few laughs about poisoned pussycats along the way.
But like we promised, we're going digital now. Because the internet has become like this breeding ground for these stories, right?
It's like this giant web of stories constantly being spun and reshaped.
Every click, every share, every comment changes them.
It's the perfect place for them to take root.
Like a digital campfire, but the stories can reach the whole world instantly.
And that's changed how they're told and shared.
It has. We're not just telling them to each other anymore.
Right. We're creating and editing them in real time, adding our own interpretations.
It's one big collaborative storytelling project, always evolving.
Okay, so how exactly has the internet changed the game for urban legends?
One thing is the rise of completely new kinds of stories, Like creepypastas, have you heard of those?
I think so. Those are like horror stories made for online.
Exactly. And they're written in that first-person style that makes them feel more real.
Like the classic urban legends, but with a digital edge.
And they spread so fast online, from forum to forum, across social media.
And as they spread, they change, right?
All the time. New versions pop up, details get changed, new characters.
It's like they're alive, constantly adapting to the internet.
And it's not just creepypastas. Those classic urban legends are online too. The killer in the back seat, for example.
Oh, yeah. I've seen that one shared all over social media.
Sometimes with pictures or videos even, making it extra scary.
It's like the story has this whole new life online.
Speaking of new life, the internet also creates completely new urban legends, like Slender Man. Did you ever hear about that?
Yes. It started online, and then it actually inspired real-life violence.
Scary, right. That's what's so powerful and maybe dangerous about the internet. It can really influence what we believe and do.
Shows us that stories, even the fake ones, have a real impact.
We have to be careful what we believe and share online. There's so much misinformation out there.
So as we finish up our urban legend deep dive, what are some final thoughts?
We've seen how these stories have changed, from those whispered tales to viral online stories.
We talked about the psychology behind them, those fears and desires they represent.
And how technology impacts how we tell and experience them.
But ultimately, I think urban legends stay relevant because they connect us, remind us that we're not alone in our experiences.
They show our shared humanity, our fascination with the strange and unexplained.
So the next time you hear a story that seems too good to be true or just too weird to ignore, think about it for a minute.
Think about where it came from, what it's trying to say, and how it changes your view of the world.
Because online, where information is always changing, we need to be careful what we believe and share.
We need to be good listeners, good thinkers, and tell stories responsibly.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into urban legends. Until next time.
Kindly head down to description and click the link to purchase the book.
Thank you for listening to us. Please kindly like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Also, please let us know which book you would like us to summarize.